Thank you for tuning in to This is Freedom. Every week we address topics and share teachings designed to encourage your personal growth and help you achieve freedom and victory in every area of life. Journey with us as our host, international author and speaker, DeMonte Edmonds engages listeners with practical insights and deep truths that help change your life.
Hello, welcome to This is Freedom. I am your host, DeMonte Edmonds, and I'm back with you again. I'm excited to come back with you another week and another day to share on another powerful topic, and I'm looking forward because we're going to have a special treat again today. We have a special guest, and I want to encourage you guys that have been tuning in, go back and make sure that you listen to all of the past broadcasts. We started with The Pursuit of Peace, and that was a 3-part series, some very good information, some good meat for you to chew on and digest that will help you in your pursuit of peace. And so this week, I think we're going to talk about a topic that's relevant and apropos to us all. I don't care if you're short, you're tall, you're white, you're black. I don't care what your background is. This is something that's relevant and apropos to us all, and it's finding balance in life, finding balance in life. And I have a special guest with me today, Dr. Dante Myers. He has a master's in psychology, a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, and he has his own consulting firm, BBA Consulting and Coaching. And he's a family man, he's a minister of the gospel, and he wears so many hats. And I just believe he's a great person to help us today to find balance in life. So Dr. Dante, I want to welcome you on to This is Freedom.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I just love the topic at hand. I'm just hoping that something I share can help somebody out there. So thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to say this to you first and foremost, that I think especially being a younger person, I say younger because I know that you're in your 20s, that, you know, when you're late teens, early 20s, sometimes you think you have a lot on your plate. And then once you get into what I call the real life with, you know, wife, job, business endeavors, children, this thing about finding balance and prioritizing and just finding that place where you can not only function and get everything done, but not burn out and have peace. Do you feel that there's something that's, especially with our generation, with millennials who are more on the go, and Generation X or Z, whatever you want to call it, they are more on the go and have so much things they're trying to achieve and trying to do? Do you think it's more challenging now than for yesteryear's generation or the boomer generation as far as finding balance?
100%. It's funny because I was literally just talking to my wife not 15 minutes ago about how we were in the kitchen together, just practical example, cooking. We were, making some baked chicken thighs. And I was just like, man, babe, it's so crazy how back in the day, this could have been the task for a family. Today, we're going to make apple pie and they're going to have this, get all the ingredients, and it might take most of the day, but that's fine. Nowadays, I told her when we were at the stove, I was like, nowadays it's like, well, let's get this dinner. Then I got to do this blog, and then let me record this. And then let me check on my business. Let me check my phone to see how my job is doing. I think nowadays, just with the globalization, just with all of the technology and always being on, finding balance is extremely difficult, but at the same time, it's extremely important for us to have boundaries across all of these different domains. So I 100% agree, especially for this generation. It's essential and extremely important to find a sense of balance, just with every different things and all the pings and notifications. Yeah, balance is extremely important right now.
You're right. And one of the things I've learned about my phone and my devices, it's okay not to respond until the next day. It's okay, to take a few hours before you to respond, because sometimes I'm going to do a task and I wear so many hats. I think I wear robes and hats and outfits, and so many, so many of them that, I found it where, I'm trying to type up an article or complete an assignment. Somebody texts me, they send me a text message. I respond, I go back to do what I'm doing. Then they send another response, and then, I'm trying to get back. And before I know it, I'm in a full-blown text message conversation. I've wasted 15, 20 minutes and I could have been completed or at least halfway completed with that task. And so I think there has to be this, at times, this compartmentalization where you kind of box some things out, even if it's for a few hours.
Totally agree. And I even, what I do is, and this is a little bit controversial, but I keep my phone and my notifications off completely on for the entire day. And how I let like my wife, I let certain individuals have a bypass so like if they need me, I can immediately respond. So like you're one of the people who I actually have on bypass. So that's why you see me. I try to be, I'm responsive whenever like you call or text, I'll respond. But for I want to say 98% of people, I don't get the notifications. And it's not that I'm disinterested in what's going on, but I'm focused on what I'm doing at hand. And most of the time, people's situations aren't emergencies that I immediately have to respond to. And I say that because in times past, we didn't have notifications, we didn't have telephones, and we didn't have internet where we had access to information immediately. People had to wait until you saw Susie Q 3 months because she lived in the city over, or you had to wait to get whether it was a parcel or whatever the case may be. So I kind of take best practices from the past to try to slow down now, because the effect of not creating boundaries over your time and over your space is, you see it now. People are more lonely, but depression, anxiety is on an increase because people are just so on at all times for every single thing and every single person. And I just don't believe that that's something that, given today's day, that we should do. So yeah.
I agree. And you know, I used to feel bad for not responding to people's requests. I used to feel bad. You know, I didn't want to feel like I was being a big shot or being egotistical or blowing them off, because I've had people blow me off and I know how it feels. So I didn't want anyone to feel that. But I realized that if I was going to fulfill the plans and purposes that God intended for my life, everyone's problem was not my problem. Everyone's issue was not my issue. And as well, you know, I get so many people text me, it's urgent, it's emergency. Well, it may be an emergency to them, but it doesn't mean it have to be an emergency to me. And so that's something that I found out, that, you know, most of the times that people are saying things that are urgent is urgent for them, but not for us. And so I think that's wonderful. And something that you hit on, you talked about yesteryear's lessons. Two of my favorite people from history, the Apostle Paul out of the Bible and Benjamin Franklin. They may seem totally unrelated, but, you know, Paul, and his span that he was in ministry, he started so many churches, he went to so many countries, he just had so much impact on history and Christian history and Christendom. And I looked at, as an apostle, those churches that he started and planted and people he raised up, they couldn't contact him by internet. They couldn't contact him by phone. They couldn't, you know, get to him in a matter of seconds. And I think that allowed him to have these boundaries so he could really focus on the task at hand and focus on what really mattered. And then I look at Benjamin Franklin. This man was an oceanographer. He started the U.S. postal system. He was a academic. He was a scholar. He was a businessman. He, you know, helped with the military. He fought it. He helped with the Congress and all of these different things. And, you know, I don't think he could have did it if he had a mobile phone to his hip that he was, you know, paying attention to every 30 or 45 seconds. And so I think that was a great point and a great lesson. Yes.
Oh, totally agree. And yeah, just on like you said, Apostle Paul having all these letters and things that he had to write back and forth, he needed that time. So I 100% agree.
Definitely. So let's get into this. I think one of the things that can help people in life to find this place of balance in life is learning the art of prioritization, learning what's important, also learning what needs to be done first, what needs to be addressed first, learning how to put things kind of in a pecking order. Can we kind of speak to that, Dr. Dante, if you will?
Yeah, I would love to. I think priorities is one of my favorite topics, and I deal with it every day at work. I deal with it within my home, just having a wife and a soon-to-be 3-year-old, a little toddler. Just having businesses and, you know, finishing my doctorate, but also, you know, being in seminary, ministry. It's a lot of different things. I think for me, I think it starts with I'm a man of faith. And I believe that if you put God first, I feel like one, he helps you map everything else out and things are a lot easier. I tend to trust in God's direction for my life more so than I can set my own life up. And I say that because, years ago, I struggled with anxiety and I didn't know how to map and plan things out. But once I kind of put it in his hands, it kind of everything kind of balances itself out. So I kind of start with that. I start with, giving my time, my focus to him as a man of faith. And then from there, I think it's absolutely essential, especially like I said, like we're talking about in this day and age, to prioritize your family. I think work is always going to be there now that we have phones and internet and whatever. I think that the ones who struggle and suffer the most can be our wife, can be our spouses and our children. So I think for me, I make it a priority, literally, to make the space, the time for them. So my wife and I having date days every week, and then going out, whether it's once a month or a couple of times a month. My son, making sure that I'm, when I pick him, when he's going to daycare, making sure that I'm around to pick him up some of those times during the week. So it's not just me laser focused in on work. Me and my wife having meetings where we plan together. All of that stuff from a family perspective comes before. I will move things around at work. I will move things around with ministry. I will move things around with entrepreneurship to make sure that they are getting the best of me and they're not getting my scraps. That's part of my nature, and it's part of what I think. At the end of the day, when you're successful in all of these things, what does it matter if your son or your children or your spouse feels so separate from you and you can't really enjoy it with them? So I put my family extremely high. And then I think from there, I try to prioritize within each of the domains that I manage, whether it's a seminary assignment or it's my business or the work that I do in the corporate world with Fortune 500 companies. I try to see what are the most urgent things. Am I reaching out to a chief human resources officer or some senior level person at a firm and they need a task today? I will probably put that first. Or my business, is there a bill that needs to be paid or else something is gonna, not process through? I will prioritize that. So not too long ago, I did like this course on self-productivity and things like that. And I just learned this ABC kind of structure. You prioritize the top things, and then you list them as A's, and you list the secondary things as B's and C's, and you start tackling them like that. And the last thing I'll say really quickly on that is, I think a lot of people struggle in the area of priorities because they have a list and they have a list of 10 things they have to do, and then they get overwhelmed because they see 10 things. They get overwhelmed because they start on number one, but number one takes 3 hours. Yep. What they have to do, going back to that point of the ABC or however you want to prioritize, you have to look at that list strategically. You have to map out what are the things that will have the biggest impact on whatever area it is that I'm focused on. What are the things that are going to move the needle or move the dial for this project or this business, or help bring in more revenue? What are the things that require more of my deep thinking and my effort? Let me put those things in the day. This last two or three tasks at the bottom, they'll take 10 minutes. I'll get those later. They're not due for 2 weeks. So I think if people take the time to really evaluate their to-do lists and map them in terms of which are the things that have the highest impact and that require the most effort and energy, they will be leaps and bounds ahead in terms of actually getting things done. But two, feeling better about it. So yeah, that's a few of my thoughts in terms of priority.
So I like all of that. And, one of the things that helps me is to have that to-do list. What makes me feel really good? You talk about feeling good about getting stuff done. When you can take your pencil or pen and mark through an item and knock it off your to-do list. One time I had a to-do list like 17 or 18 items. And I was like, wow, man, this is a lot. Because, as time go on, more stuff get added to your to-do list. But one day I said, I'm just going to take 2 hours of bang, bang, bang. Before I knew it, I was like to 7 or 8 items. And I was like, wow, this isn't as overwhelming as I thought it would be. Now I want to kind of backtrack. You mentioned being a person of faith and a man of God, which I am as well. Something that I've found out as well, if you put God first, he seems to somehow helps us to get extra time, or he helps us to
Yeah.
manage our time. You know, it's been days
Yep.
when I went into prayer and, you know, and I had things planned out for the day, and the Lord said, you know, take your family out for brunch, or the Lord told me, go do this or go do that. And when I did it, it was always fruitful. I always had more joy, you know, things already worked out. And so I think sometimes just by not going to God and say, God, what is it that I should do today? What is it that I should focus on? We miss out on sometimes the supernatural instruction.
100% agree. I've been in many circumstances and situations just like that, where, you know, I would take that. And again, I think we have an inclination of what the things we want to what are the things that we want to take care of, right? We have, like you said, our to-do list, and I got to get this done now. And probably 9 times out of 10, we'll push the things that we really need to focus on to the side. I think it's also human nature to run away from the things that are, you know, the most challenging, or the things that will kind of push you ahead. We kind of run away and try to do the things that, all right, let me just keep doing this or doing that. So sometimes that's how it is for me with family, or even with my own self-care. I will push those things to the side for the activity, for the task. But when I seek God in prayer, I think I always get this sense of, son, focus on this, and then this, you can focus on that. And what it does is it trains my heart, one, to trust him, but two, to not rely on myself and my own thinking. So I 100% agree that we should definitely lay our plans, our tasks, our daily lists in front of God, and allow him to provide that initial direction and prioritization. But then I think he also enables us to have some of that innate ability, or that trained skill, to also learn how to prioritize our work as well.
Yes, definitely. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't look at it as a to-do list item. They don't look at it as actual goal or something that should be integrated and incorporated into their productivity. And it's kind of in contrast. It sounds in contrast to productivity, to that word, but I believe that it is actually something that empowers us and reinforces us to be productive. Is rest. It's sometimes just pulling back, you know, whether it's at a low level, taking a nap, or at a high level, taking 3 days and getting out of town, getting away. You know, I call it getting out of Dodge. But even God, when he created the creation, or created the world at the beginning book of Genesis, in his infinite wisdom, it said on the 7th day he rested. So I feel if God needs a strategic rest, we need a strategic rest. And some people are fearful of taking a rest. What do you think, Dr. Dante?
Yeah, I agree. I think, and again, that's a characteristic of the day and the times that we live in, where it's do more, get more done, you know, cut corners, eat fast food, eat, you know, everything is so fast. Throw your food in a microwave. Everything is so fast, so that we can just try to get this one incremental increase in product. But I think that what it's doing is actually damaging us, because we're not learning how to slow down, how to take strategic rest. I love how you put that. My wife and I, we were talking, she had a lot of stuff going on, and she didn't know, she felt like she just had to do more. And I think she read a book, and there was a line from it that was so powerful. It said that you have to slow down in order to speed up. And it's such a simple quote, but it gave her the strength kind of to know that, hey, I need to slow down. So I am 100% the same way. So for me, I want to say, going back to my graduate school days, I didn't have that. I didn't really rest. I kind of devoted my whole self to my education. I was working all throughout the day, and then I would take a break, eat some dinner, and just work throughout the night. So I didn't know what it really meant to rest. Not only that, but I also have a performance orientation. So those two things together, this innate ability to keep working, but then I'm also trying to succeed and achieve. When you put those two things together, it can quickly lead to burnout. But one thing, I started to look at those principles in scripture around taking rest, and I started to incorporate naps into my day. I started to incorporate times when I just go out and just walk and just let my thoughts kind of clean themselves up. And I find that I'm more energized. I'm more my mood is better. I have more energy to accomplish what I have before me. It's just our brains don't want to process it, right? It wants to keep moving. But you have to slow down to speed up. And that's one of the things that I have learned the power of, especially lately, to just be there present for my family, be there to meet my demands, but also not lose my mind in the process. So I totally agree.
And that was a perfect segue, because the next thing I wanted to talk about, and that was all great and powerful information and wisdom. The next thing I really was on my heart I want to talk about is how to know when we're burnt out. Because I know there's two types of burnouts. There's a physical burnout, which is our physical system. That's a little bit easier to detect and discern. But there's a mental burnout. And a lot of people, you know, they may be feeling anxiety or depression or sadness. And it may not be that they're actually depressed or anxious so much. It could really be rooted in they're burnt out. How can people discern when they're burnt out? Because if you're burnt out, your productivity is going to go down. Your joy is going to go down. You're going to be more snappy and agitated with your family, with your coworkers. You may be getting stuff done, but you're not going to enjoy it, and it's going to backfire on you. How can people know when they're burnt out? Talk to us, because you have some life experiences. You have, this academic input from psychology, and then you have this professional experience with industrial psychology. We want to know, Dr. Dante, please tell us.
Yeah, no, I love talking about this topic, and I'll approach it from those two angles, just like very practical, personal, but then I'll tie in some of the science to help. So from a personal perspective, you hit it 100% on the head. When you start to feel those feelings of like, you feel like you're down, you feel like your mood is off, it's most of the time, like if you look at what you're doing, whether it's your work, whether it's your different assignments running around, whether you've been on your phone all day, you've been watching TV all day, you'll find that it's not that it's depression, but you're right that your body is just saying, hey, slow down. I need a break. So watching yourself, seeing as you have, mood shifts or mood changes or fatigue, or you're getting sick more often, just being a good steward over your own body, managing yourself, being self-aware of just any changes in your attitude, even in your diet. You just gotta watch how your body is taking things, and you have to also recognize what you're doing on a day-to-day. Or have you upped it? Have you been maximizing your performance this week because you had a huge deadline and you've just been pushing, not taking a break, not eating a snack, not eating lunch, kind of powering through lunch? All of those things over time will eventually contribute to burnout. And the research and the science shows that as you continue to overwork, that there are these physiological, psychological, all of these different health effects that start to happen as you continue to work and not slow down. Now, from a true scientific lens, there are also assessments that, there's this whole field called psychometrics and it's something that I do in my professional career, just helping, from a psychometric perspective, creating assessments that can help you understand, are you at a place of burnout? So there's assessments that you can take. You have to make sure that they're reliable and valid. That's, technical terms in that space. But there's also ones that, as a psychologist, people probably wouldn't want to hear this, but there's also good, I think, self-checks online that also can point you to. You don't want to say, I have this after taking some quick thing on Google, but it starts to give you more direction as you start to, look within yourself to see if you have anything. So I think all in all, it's being more aware of what's going on in your day-to-day and in your week-to-week. Have you been working for 2 months straight and, not really taking any kind of break, whether it's a few days or a day to recharge? And right now, especially in the world of work with, lots of different changes in the evolution of things, there's a lot of companies and a lot of people who are focused on employee and people's well-being and their mental health. So there's a lot more resources out there. And I think that this is the time for people to lean into this moment and become more self-aware, become more mindful of the things that are going on within them, because you don't want to get to a point of burnout where it's going to take you some time to recover. So that's just a couple of quick tools and tips that I think people can use to understand where they are in terms of burnout.
So that's great. And you mentioned psychometrics. And, I think this ties into it as well, that some people should take the personality test, you know, the DISC test, the DISC assessment, sorry, the Myers-Briggs assessment. And there's different ones, PATH assessment. And I think when you also know your personality type, it helps you to kind of navigate around. All of those personality types have strengths and weaknesses. You know, if you're a strong D or you're strong this or weak this, you know, and it kind of helps you see where your weaknesses are so that those weaknesses don't become pitfalls for you. And you can navigate around those areas and just have more of a holistic approach to finding balance and having peace and getting things done.
Couldn't agree more. I totally agree. So one of the big, most validated and reliable kind of approaches to personality that you'll see in the scientific research is what's called the Big Five. And I think one of them in particular stands out in this area, something that, you know, people can take to understand where they are. And it's one called emotional stability. And I think that, you know,
is that Berkeley?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, is that the Berkeley emotional stability, emotional intelligence test?
Oh, no, this one is it's within the overall Big Five personality, where they have, it's like some people call it the ocean, where you have openness to experience, conscientiousness. Are you extra? I believe it's, I should know these. I think it's extroversion, agreeableness, and then neuroticism. But another way to say neuroticism is emotional stability. But that's, if you have some issues in that area, it's probably a little bit more difficult for you to kind of know where you are, or you're probably a little bit more flustered, or situations might throw you off. So I think I agree. Knowing where you are from a personality perspective can help you know that, okay, I have a little bit of emotional instability, so it may impact me in this way when it comes to these assignments, which may predispose me or, you know, make me more than somebody else to get to a point of burnout. So it's just kind of using some of that research, using some of those best practices to our advantage to prevent and try our best to avoid burnout. Because again, like, I've been burnt out before, and it feels like you hit a wall. You can't do anything. You have no joy, no hope,
Yep.
no energy, and it's just not the place to be. And I've had to take 2-week hiatuses, 3-week hiatuses, and find that joy, get that energy. But the reason it happens is because, going back to your point on rest, when you don't take that point of rest, your body almost forces itself, and it tells you need to rest. So therefore, you need to create this space. And
hold on, set it again. I want you to set it again real quick. Go back. Yeah, in case some people missed that. You said when you don't take the rest, your body. Go ahead. Say that one more time, because that was powerful.
Yeah, it's like when you don't take rest, and burnout is almost like this indication telling you, it's like your body forces itself to say, I need rest, and it forces itself to take that rest. And it almost reminds me, and like, just kind of going back to like a biblical example, you know, a long time ago, the children of Israel, it's like God had this model where the land needed a certain amount of rest. I forget the period of years, but there was a period of years.
7 years. The seventh year.
The land had, the land had to take its time, and it needed to rest. But you would see whenever there was exile, or wherever there was a certain situation with Israel, God still cared about that. He says, well, now you can't do anything because the land is going to take its time to rest. They weren't caring about that law. They didn't really process it. So the land was almost forced into this point of rest. The children of Israel pushed into a point of whether it was certain bondage or they had certain things they had to go through. And I believe there's a scripture that even says that God said, now the land can finally take its rest, because they kept tilling the land. They kept working the land. In the same way, like our bodies, if we keep working our bodies and keep taking our working the land, quote unquote, we will also be forcibly put into a place of rest. And I'll say this might be a little controversial, but I think sometimes, you know, the things that we see going on in the world, and I think sometimes because we're not slowing down. You see the market go up and down, but
yes,
it takes time to correct itself, right? Because we're pumping all this money into all of this stuff, but sometimes it just needs to rest. That's why we have depressions, recessions. It's like even the global markets are saying, hey, let's slow, like, it needs its time to rest. So that's just my thought on it, that I think rest and the need for rest is baked into humans, it's baked into society, it's baked into even the earth itself, that it needs time and periods of rest in order to meet and reach its full potential.
Amen.
So yeah.
So Dr. Dottie, I want to thank you so much. That was powerful because you took it from a microcosm to a macrocosm approach and perspective and paradigm of rest. And so I want to thank you so much for being on the show and sharing the wisdom and sharing the insight. And guys, listen, he talked about the big five. I want to guys let you know something that's helped me with rest. I call it the big four: Matthew, Mark, John, and Luke, the four gospels. You know, I remember going through some hardships as a young man, and even at, you know, my family dealt with divorce and all of these things. Even as a child, I would pick up and read the four gospels, and just the words of Jesus would always give me rest. He says in Matthew 11:28, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." I believe that's one of the best starting places. We share so much with you today, but this is one of the best starting places, is coming to God, returning to God, getting into that relationship with God. And he has this supernatural ability to give you rest and also to lead you into places where rest becomes a part of your life. And you get this balance in your life now, that your work, your family, your ministry, your job, your business, you can now enjoy it and also get things done. So this is Freedom. I'm your host again, DeMonte Edmonds. We had a wonderful time with Dr. Dante. Tune in each week as we're going to come with some great topics, and we're going to encourage and empower you for the journey that's ahead. Have a blessed day.
Thank you again for tuning into This is Freedom with your host, DeMonte Edmonds. We pray you have been inspired on your personal journey to freedom and victory in every area of life. Please tune in weekly for more empowering and inspiring episodes. If you would like to support this broadcast, please Cash App $DE, Also, we encourage you to visit our website, www.demontetv.com, for more information and resources. Follow the show's host, DeMonte, on Instagram at DeMonteTV.